City of Stevens Point Plan Commission meeting, recorded December 15, 2025.
I have 5 o'clock. We'll call the Special City Plan Commission meeting to order. Director, could we get a roll call, please?
You certainly can. Alderperson Kneebone.
Here.
Commissioner Artson.
Here.
Commissioner Beacom.
Here.
Commissioner Rice.
Here.
Commissioner Schuler.
Here.
Commissioner Stroik. And then online we have Mayor Mike Wiesa.
Here.
Here.
Okay, we have one item on the agenda, a request from Portage County to amend the Stevens Point Comprehensive Plan. Said request amends the future land use designation of the property located at 825 Whiting Avenue, parcel ID ending in 101103, from institutional government to commercial office multifamily. Director, there's a particular reason why we're having this meeting now. Would you like to explain that just so we're clear?
Yeah, of course. So this item was on a prior Plan Commission meeting agenda. There was a vote. That vote did end in a tie. Because it was a tie, there was a failed motion. Now, because there was a tie on that vote, no further action was taken, and just it was passed to council. With further discussion with our legal counsel, it was determined based on past legal precedent that the comprehensive plan amendment needed to come forward to council with some sort of recommendation, whether that was a full recommendation for denial or a full recommendation for approval, not a failed motion. So that is coming back before the Plan Commission so that a formal motion can be made and sent to council.
Okay, and I want to remind everybody that this is on the council agenda tonight. The council meeting is in this room at 7 o'clock. So y'all will have an opportunity to discuss this issue again later tonight. So stick around and make your voice heard. And with that, before we open it up for discussion, I'd like to introduce Laura Shady-Stroik, our newest Plan Commission member. Thank you for committing to serve on this committee. You only have to watch out for Commissioner Schuler. Yeah. No, we have a history to, it's a very good commission to be on.
Thank you.
The folks here, they all always come prepared, and they're all a good group. A lot of good discussions, so welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll allow any questions or questions from the committee before we get started with public comments. Okay? Adam, you want to?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief since I think most folks are obviously aware about more of the technical details behind this request and the 2 other requests that this commission considered about 2 weeks ago to the date. So again, subject property of focus would be the area highlighted in this teal shaded area off of Whiting Ave and Water Street. Current conditions as far as the zoning designation for the parcel is this R2 single family zoning designation. The city's future land use map, which is a part of the city's comprehensive plan, identifies the subject property for institutional and governmental uses based on the proposed potential future land use of the property. The sale of the healthcare center to a private entity, that's what would require the future land use amendment, the rezoning request, and finally the comprehensive, the conditional use permit. I guess 2 points that I want to bring up just as part of the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago that I think could warrant a little bit more deliberation on. And the first one is talking about the one review standard for the comprehensive plan amendment that relates to the public facilities and services. This would be review standard number 4, quote, "The amendment shall not create an adverse impact on public facilities and services." I think during the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, there was the understanding that a public facility or a public service can only be those that are offered by a unit of government, a municipality, a county, a state, for example. Now, the image on the screen here, it's a bunch of text, apologize for the bunch of text, but this is the utilities and community facilities element of the comprehensive plan statute. So comprehensive plan statute, chapter 66, you have all the 9 elements of a comprehensive plan, and each one of those elements describes the purpose, the details, and what ultimately needs to be included within a new comprehensive plan. And here in this utility and community facilities element, it does provide specific examples of what's considered a community facility, a public facility. And the key thing to point out is some of these community facilities that are provided as examples are not those that are typically offered by a unit of government. You know, for example, a child care facility, a healthcare facility, power generating plants and transmission lines. I'd be curious to know if there's any unit of any municipality or county government, for example, that offers such a land use. So I wanted to bring that up just to get the better understanding and hopefully provide context for you commissioners and council members later on this evening, is that there's more to public facilities than just, is it offered by a unit of government, yes or no? You can have these public facilities that are offered by both public organizations and private organizations. And then secondly and lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the commercial piece of the commercial office and multifamily future land use designation. I know there were some concerns about why include the terminology of commercial within that future land use designation request. And there's a few reasons that we brought up 2 weeks ago, one of them being consistency with other facilities and how they're designated here in Stevens Point. Another reason is just the sheer fact from a statutory standpoint that a comprehensive plan has to be consistent with a zoning ordinance. And if you look at our zoning ordinance, the allowable land uses within the R4 multifamily 1 residence district, not only are there a variety of residential land uses that are allowed, but also office and commercial land uses as well. So on the slide here, I list just some examples of commercial land uses that are allowed within the R4 district, either permitted by right or through a conditional use permit. Examples being lodges, funeral homes, bed and breakfast establishments, daycare centers. Those land uses, a daycare center I'll use as an example, that's not inherently an office type of land use, and it surely isn't considered a multifamily land use. Really the best land use criteria that would allow for these types of land uses to achieve greater consistency between those two land use plans would be adopting that commercial future land use designation as well. And I completely understand why there would be some concerns from folks about why are you allowing the commercial piece of it. And I think one of the reasons is just, and this is not meant to be a cop-out, but the fact that our zoning code is older, it's outdated, and frankly, newer zoning codes today don't have this flexibility of, or this abundance of land uses compiled within a singular zoning district. They tend to be more secular in nature, having, for example, this multifamily district having only multifamily residential uses, not diverging into office type uses and commercial uses within that same zoning district. So ultimately, this is what we have to work with. I can guarantee you that that's been a thought of my mind over the last several months as it relates to the city's zoning code rewrite efforts, but ultimately this is what the law is on the books today, and that's ultimately the recommendation that the applicant is seeking. Lastly, I'll just state that staff's position remains the same, that we recommend approval of the future land use map amendment as requested.
Commissioners? Anything?
I make a motion to approve the request to change the future land use designation from institutional government to commercial, multifamily office.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll have some discussion here, and then we'll allow the public to speak.
I went storming into Adam's office on this very issue about commercial and looking at it, and that was the concern I expressed when this came before us last time, saying I don't think a future land use designation of commercial is good for that property. Changing the the current relatively quiet zoning classification and moving it to a residential type seems a reasonable step. If you're going to change it, residential fits in around there, and that's what I was questioning. Why do we need the office commercial aspect of it? And Adam explained that very issue, that the new zoning class wouldn't be able, you wouldn't be able to implement some of the options, some of the conditional uses of that new zoning. And I agree that those types of activities, funeral homes, bed and breakfast, would be consistent with the more quiet residential nature of that parcel and of that zoning change. And so again, be consistent with the future land use for that area. I had the concern, it's commercial, it touches on commercial in a couple places next to this parcel, that it wouldn't necessarily be spot zoning if sometime they changed it to commercial zoning classification from R4 to, I don't know, some business zoning. But he explained that there would be limitations to doing that. It would still come before us. And so basically, he addressed my concerns. We talked about the wetlands, and that's not a real protective thing. It was offered as, look, this is going to obstruct development, and I'm skeptical that it would. But again, there are ways that we can incorporate that in our process. It ties into draining and ties into other things. So I was all set to dig in my heels on this one, but upon further review and consideration, I think it's, irrespective of how it affects the healthcare center and that, I just think what's being asked and to go along with our zoning changes, that it's entirely reasonable. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're going to let folks from the public speak. Come up to the lectern. I need your name and address for the record, and I'm not going to cut people off, but try to keep it around 3-4 minutes if you can, and hopefully not continue to repeat things other folks have said. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, it works. Thank you for your time and attention. My name is Alan Buchanan. I live at 1208 Black Bear Trail, which is in the Whitetail neighborhood, which the city adjusted their zoning to include us for our high tax base. So, sorry. I apologize if I insult anybody. It won't be intentional, but I tend to be blunt sometimes. I was going to recognize Mr. Wiesa for his efforts to imitate Santa Claus, because I guess recently he was Santa Claus, and I don't know, but anyway, he did a good job.
He is online, so he probably has just heard you say that.
Well, he did a good job anyway, I heard, but I'm assuming that. I didn't hear that he got arrested or anything. I'm 77 and a half years old, and which is officially categorized as older than dirt. Okay. And I have a number of friends and colleagues who also fit into that category. And believe it or not, there are people that are actually older than that, which, it's hard to believe. Okay. As such, us at this age have a strong chance of ending up in a nursing home at some point in time, and we expect the care to be excellent, like it has been at the present nursing home. I'm at an age where, a heart attack, a stroke, it's wintertime, falling on my butt, needing recovery after surgery and that kind of thing. And, in some cases, you may need long-term care. And so I expect if I end up in a nursing home that I get incredible care. Okay. And the existing facility has gotten good grades, does a nice job, and I'm not sure the replacement will do that. They have kind of a checkered checkered history, depending on, not every place is, but not all the places are as good as the presents we have here, and so time will tell. So I'm opposed to the sale. Second, I live in the Whitetail neighborhood. My mate and I, of 52 years, I still don't know what she was thinking. We pay significant property taxes, and a small portion of which funds this, a tiny percent funds the nursing home. And we are not protesting those taxes, but do expect whatever portion goes to the nursing home is not diverted to something it was not intended for, because that was set up, I believe, probably by the vote of the people or however they did it. Also, Lynette and I both vote whenever possible, and we try to only vote once per election, but yeah, so far. And we don't always expect to win, but in this case, where we voted with a large majority, we expect that vote to mean something. And now you're telling us and the rest of the voting public that that meant nothing. So you're not serving your constituents. And plus at a previous board meeting, county board meeting, one of the board members basically said his constituents voted for the issue because they didn't know the issue, they hadn't studied. So basically he's saying his people were ill-informed, which there's other terms that make. So I'm going, really, would you really say that about your constituents, that they're not smart enough to know what they're voting for? And I can't believe it. So for 25 years in Missouri, I was a public employee, so I know what you guys are faced with. And as a public employee, we knew that one of our primary audiences, is working for the public. Because if you're a public employee, that's the deal. So, and of course you already know that. And okay, so in the end, do you honor the wish of your constituents, or do you vote to further enable the county board to proceed with the sale of the Portage County Health Center nursing home, which I think is a bad idea? So again, thank you for your attention. I think this whole rezoning issue would not have come up if it hadn't been for this nursing home issue. I think that's what's propelling this. And so anyway, thank you, and you guys take care. Get home safe, stay warm, all that kind of stuff.
Anybody else from the public?
I'm online and would like to speak.
Okay, we've got someone coming up, but it's going to take Mildred a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay.
Name and address. Oh.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For me?
Yes.
Okay, Mary McComb, 2100 Elk Street in Stevens Point. The Portage County Healthcare Center occupies land that's designated institutional/governmental, or maybe the other way around, in the city's future land use map. This label identifies typically non-property tax paying entities and their future land use needs, places like local government facilities, hospitals, religious properties, schools, and others. In August, in an unrelated matter, the city argued the importance of honoring the land use map in any zoning decisions. And city staff explained that changes in land use designations could have some bad effects, including resulting in questioning future requests for changes, hindering making long and short-term planning recommendations, and could lead to misinformation about how land truly could be best developed. In short, and my pun is intended here, tinkering with land use recommendations leaves us on shaky ground when it comes to making wise decisions. Now, however, the city proposes to trash existing land use designation for the advantage of a private real estate developer. This land has been public land, and only 16% of the city's land is in the governmental institutional category. Turning it over to a private developer betrays the many residents who want it and the healthcare center to remain under our oversight. By the way, the privately owned nursing home by Century, Harmony Village, sits on land labeled commercial. You might ask then, why is Aspirus on institutional governmental land? Aspirus is private, yes, but it is a nonprofit organization. Its mission is to serve the public, not as the Ensign facility would do, profit from the public. How could the city insist in August that it's so urgent to preserve current land use? And now the city thinks it's just fine to change it. You can't have it both ways. Please honor and preserve the current land use designation of institutional/governmental for the Portage County Healthcare Center property for the good of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mildred, go ahead.
Mildred Neville, 1709 Jefferson Street, Stevens Point. At the December 1st meeting of the Plan Commission, I pointed something out, that the administrative staff report had a clear error in the section entitled Findings of Fact. There's a lot going on these days in the world about what's fact, what's true. Item number 2 in Finding of Fact states the prospective buyer would be the Ensign Group, Inc., a privately managed post-acute care business. At that time, I read the following, which I quote from the section headed from the Ensign Group section heading in their company overview. Ensign says, the Ensign Group, Inc.'s independent subsidiaries, independent operating subsidiaries provide a broad spectrum of skilled nursing and senior living services, physical, occupational, and speech therapies, other rehabilitative and healthcare services, and real estate. Real estate. That is one of the things that the Ensign Group, Inc. says it does. Now, there are 2 problems with this finding of fact. The Ensign Group, for starters, is not a privately managed post-acute care business. That's not what the Ensign Group is. And this is pretty major. We need to be able to trust when we get reports from our plan community, community development group, our department, that we're really getting fact. But the Ensign Group is not that. It's a bunch of subsidiary companies. Okay. And when you put out to the public that this is what it is, a privately managed post-acute care business, that's frankly very misleading, very misleading. The real estate is a major part of what they do. So I have a big concern here, not just about how you're going to vote tonight, but are you going to take something that was factually incorrect, that there were 2 weeks in which it could have been corrected, and it wasn't, and then go ahead and vote? Even accepting tonight that it was incorrect and going ahead and voting, I think it's a mistake. Okay, the Ensign Group is not the prospective buyer. No. Okay? And in addition to the fact that what the Ensign Group does wasn't clear, it isn't the prospective buyer. The prospective buyers are two separate LLCs, one of which will buy the physical property, land, buildings, etc., in other words, the real property, and will lease it to the other company that will purchase the operational side through an operations transfer agreement. So one's buying real estate, one's buying operations. In what was, okay, I'm just going to quit beating a dead horse here. So the findings of fact were not corrected. That is extremely disturbing to me as a citizen. There were 2 weeks where this could have been looked into, and it could have been corrected tonight, and it wasn't. I think it's a very big mistake to let something like that happen and then just vote and move on. Particularly when the vote, well, okay. The thing about the tie vote, and that's not giving a recommendation to the county. Maybe in the future we'll remember that's the case. But we could have waited. We had a 7th member coming. This didn't have to be brought up on the day before the 7th member joined the committee. I think you should not vote tonight, period. I think you should correct the mistakes that were made so we can continue to trust what is being done. Thank you.
Mary Ann Leszewski, 1209 Wisconsin Street, 9th District, Stevens Point. I was recently struck by how beautiful the grove of over 50 tall pine trees that grace the county home grounds are. They were planted for our generation to enjoy and offer a serenity to those who live and call this place their home. The building is also positioned far back from Water Street to create a large park-like setting. Building commercial multifamily sites here would find half of the trees needing to be removed. With setback requirements, projects could not fit and be on the front of the property unless we removed the setback requirements, as we did at the Grant School site on 4th Avenue for townhomes, but I hope we don't go there again. On the south back side of the property, quieter office buildings would not be considered because we have a plethora of vacant office spaces in Stevens Point and Plover. Most commercial buildings remain open till 9 p.m. The artificial lighting, customer parking, delivery trucks, and store activities will disturb the East Wing tenants if their windows are open. How many apartments will be fitted in? A few 4 units, a 20 unit or more? Tenants of apartments and their guests will easily find the adjacent county home grounds for their own personal park and playground, both by day and by night. The area does not have a curfew. Shift workers and visitors coming and going at all hours are sounds that carry into the night, awakening anyone with their windows open on the east and north wings. Night use of the grounds will generate police calls, as happened at the Convent Grove Apartments. Commercial developments would be a death knell and would look and act like they don't belong on the yard of this home. Forcing the new commercial identity on the property is only being done for someone's personal gain. If it were to change to any comprehensive plan use, a conservancy designation would fit, as it provides protection to environmentally sensitive lands, including wetlands, which are on this property. The site is currently identified as institutional and government, as we've already been reminded tonight, which is 100% what it is and how it functions and why it was given this designation and functioned well as such for decades. It does not service as a commercial, office, multifamily enterprise. Do we pretend and change its function because one person's business venture wants to develop here? Standard review number 3 of the comprehensive plan states, the amendment shall not create any adverse impact on adjacent land. Changing the comprehensive plan would have an adverse impact on the county homeland. With the proposed sale to Ensign or their subsidiaries, there have been several discussions about proposed developments to be built on this property. The area would change from an almost natural preserve to a commercial residential area with its noise and light pollution and reduced security for the residents of the county home. This is a sacred space. It's meant by our forefathers to remain as was originally planned for, a skilled, peaceful home for those who need it at any age in their life. I trust you ran for office to support our residents, not to just help a California investor maximize a return on his investment. Do not change this perfectly assigned comprehensive plan. It is not broke. Honor our land use plan designation. It is not meant for real estate development, and the real buyers need to be vetted, as we did the Ensign Group, before proceeding with the sale. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Go ahead, sir. Name and address for the record.
Sure. Kevin Ramakrishna. I'm with Reinhardt Berner Van Duren, address at 22 Mifflin Street in Madison. I just wanted to hit on a couple of things. Adam has already covered a lot of what I would have otherwise filled you guys in on or discussed. So the big topic clearly has been use and the potential for commercial or other type of multifamily development. One of the topics that we weren't really able to get into at the previous meeting was the right of first offer and option to purchase that we have negotiated with Ensign. So if there is a change of use, the county would have the option to purchase back the property. And also if they are intending to sell the property, they would have to first come to the county and allow them to make the offer. In those circumstances, what we would see in the right of first offer, for example, you would have a 60-day negotiating period, an exclusive negotiating period. We were able to work out what the deal would be. Now, as my background, I spent a decade as an assistant city attorney doing economic development work, and we are basing I did that in the city of Madison, done a lot of affordable housing projects. We've used similar models so that in the event of issues at properties or, well, exactly that. If there are issues at properties, we want to have a seat at the table, right? It's one thing to say, oh, we have these, this deal is perfectly worked out, but the way we always have to look at it as a government entity is we're not looking on 5-year or 10-year timelines. We're looking on 20, 30, 50, 100-year timelines. And so what we want is when that day comes, that Ensign does terminate, they dissolve, they go away, we want to make sure that we still have a seat at the table to make sure that we can preserve the use on this property. So hopefully that addresses some of these issues. And of course, I'll be available if you guys have questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience?
Eric Olson. I reside at 2025 West River Drive in the city of Stevens Point. First off, I want to welcome Commissioner Strike to the Plan Commission. This is not easy work sometimes, And these are serious deliberations, and I again applaud the commission for taking these matters seriously. I did teach land use planning at UW-Stevens Point in the College of Natural Resources for 6 years. A lot of what we had to do was teach people about the basics of zoning and planning, making sure they understood the relationships. I'm not sure if it's a correction, but at one point you said the plan has to be consistent with the zoning. It's actually the other way around. The zoning has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is the engine, if you will, of our land use regulations, both the zoning, subdivision regulations, and a number of other different programs. The plan itself is meant to be a broad, public engaging process. Creating a comprehensive plan is not something you just do overnight or even do in a single meeting of a plan commission. It engages the public in community surveys, long meetings, drawn out sometimes over many, many years. And last time we had a number of people who were part of that process. I applaud them for being there. Once you develop a plan, you have now basically an agreement on the community's future in broad senses. This is what this community is going to look like for the next, in the case of the person who just mentioned, decades sometimes, multiple decades. And people make investments in land use and houses based on an expectation that the comprehensive plan is not something that's going to be amended and changed whenever somebody comes forward and says, hey, I'd like to change the comp plan. Your job is not to snap to and accommodate those requests. Your job is to take them serious and deliberate them. And in fact, the plan itself has this implementation element. And again, I'd encourage, especially people who are new to the Plan Commission, to make sure they understand it. But one of the quotes I want to point out is, says, the applicant that proposes an amendment to the future land use map shall have the burden of proof to show that the proposed amendment is in the public interest and internally consistent with the remainder of the plan. What that means is it's not up for you to try and make an argument on their behalf or to try to defend what they're doing. It's up to any applicant, whether it's the county government itself or any private landowner, or sometimes even the city of Stevens Point itself wants to propose a change to the plan. It's on the burden is on the applicant to show that the public interest will not be harmed. Now, I studied planning long enough to know that the public interest, it turns out, is a difficult thing to discern all the time. It doesn't just present itself to you and say, here's what the public interest is. It's a no-brainer. It's rare that you would put like a plan amendment change to referendum and ask the public to weigh in. Do you think this is in the public interest? In this case, you actually have a relatively recent referendum on this very question. Is it in the public's interest to allow this land use change from public institutional, something that's been in place now for about 100 years, to something different? The voters in the Stevens Point, the city of Stevens Point, in fact, the whole county, were asked this very question. Do you want this to maintain a public use? Are you willing to tax yourself to maintain it as a public use? At the county-wide scale, the voters said yes. And in the city of Stevens Point, the voters overwhelmingly said yes. So to this question of, is this in the public interest? I ask you to think about that. Think about whether this is really in the public interest, to allow this future land use map to change, to allow a much wider set of future land uses that aren't necessarily constrained in the way that they have been now. When it is a public institutional piece of land, we the people have direct control over it. Once it is no longer in our control, we have minimal control. So I would urge you to vote no on this amendment. And I do want to say one other thing. I want to apologize on the behalf of Portage County and the city of Stevens Point for putting Commissioner Stroik in this position. This is not a fair way to start a term on a plan commission. And I want to apologize also because you might get a sense that this decision definitely has to be made today. We could not possibly wait another month or two. You're all in a pressure cooker, and it's artificially created. This decision can wait. This doesn't have to happen today, but pressure will be applied to make sure that you settle this matter. So I apologize for both of those things. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Jackie Guthrie. I am the Alder for District 2. We are sitting right now in District 2 for the city of Stevens Point. I live at 2700 Peck Street. I want to use Mr. Olson's comments as a jumping off point. So we do have a comprehensive plan. And my understanding of that comprehensive plan is that it is the mechanism for the roadmap for our strategic vision for our community in terms of facility and land planning. Well, our comprehensive plan is being revised and is out of date, one might argue. Our strategic plan for the city of Stevens Point, as I understand it, was passed really recently in 2022. And that strategic plan, called People Are the Point, had a vision of a livable, connected, resilient, and sustainable community. And so I would ask that either staff or the applicants tonight express how the land use change that they are proposing and requesting facilitates the city of Stevens Point becoming a more livable, connected, resilient, and sustainable community, which all of the detailed utility and community facility elements and other elements that are before you tonight are meant to help us obtain. I'll yield. Thank you.
Nancy Rappi, 39 Angelo Court. Before I get to my planned comments, I'd like to respond to Mr. Ramakrishna's attempt to give you comfort by stating that the sales contract has this provision whereby the county would have first right of refusal to repurchase that land if it were ever to be sold. In my opinion, it should give you pause, because they're teeing up the fact that they're not going to hang on to that property for any length of time. That property is going to get developed relatively quickly to milk the profits out of that property. That is what a real estate investment trust that Mildred referred to, that is what they do to make profit. At the December 1st Plan Commission meeting, the vote on this item was a 3-3 tie, and thus it failed. Tonight, we're here to revisit that decision with the addition of a 7th commission member. I'm sure the county would prefer a trifecta where all 3 were voted in favor, and they used their influence to get this meeting. It's my understanding the comprehensive plan is not intended to be modified at a whim. It's supposed to be a document that plays the long game, not subject to changes haphazardly, carelessly, or casually. And perhaps more importantly, it is not to result in an adverse impact on public facilities and services. Although this comprehensive plan change may seem routine, it is anything but insignificant. In fact, the request is monumental in scope, and if approved, will have a lasting impact on the quality of life for Stevens Point residents. Private sector profiteers externalize their expenses by burdening public services on a routine basis. It's their business model. There is already evidence of this in our community. In response to a FOIA request, I learned from Fire Chief Moody that in 2024, there was a shocking 274 ambulance calls to the privately owned nursing home on Sherman Avenue. The residents there receive substandard care until a crisis point is reached, whereupon the ambulance is summoned, and the resident is transported to the hospital to receive the care they already paid for and should have received. Recently, I asked Fire Chief Moody to provide this same information for 2025, but this time, not only for the former River Pines, but also for the Ensign-owned Willowbrook Senior Living Facility, and for comparison purposes, the Portage County Health Care Center.
Unfortunately, he has not yet fulfilled this request, perhaps because it will show a stark contrast between the privately owned and operated facilities versus the five-star county-owned Portage County Healthcare Center. If Ensign gets control of the Portage County Healthcare Center and operates it like most of its other for-profit facilities, you can fully expect an increase in ambulance calls, literally exploding, putting an unbearable strain on an already overburdened ambulance service. I can't imagine how our EMTs, paramedics, and firefighters will be able to cope with that increase. The former River Pines typically has a census of 20 patients. If that low census generates 274 ambulance calls in a year, imagine how many calls will come from a full 48-bed Ensign facility. Ensign has claimed it plans to add bariatric patients to the healthcare center. Think of how difficult it will be for the ambulance service to handle the special needs of those folks on a daily basis. This is by definition an adverse impact on public facilities and services. And I urge you to deny the comprehensive plan change request. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? And I'll yield the chair back to the actual chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the latitude in helping out. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mary Wiesa, Planning Commission members. My name is John Pavelski, Portage County Executive, and I reside in Amherst Junction. We are here tonight to discuss the county's application to amend the Stevens Point Comprehensive Plan. In his memo with your packet, Associate Planner Zoning Administrator Adam Kuhn set forth the standards, analysis, and recommendations to approve the county's application. It is important to emphasize that the actual use of this property is not changing. The current use is that of a skilled nursing facility and will remain in its use as a skilled nursing facility with the potential sale of the Portage County Healthcare Center. For this reason alone, the Plan Commission's decision on the comp plan amendment should be routine. I understand there have been some vocal comments and opinions which are offered to sway your vote away from the applicable standards. While some factors should not bear upon your decision, I will address those matters and concerns right now. For a matter of context and history, the Portage County Healthcare Center has been struggling for quite some time. It has lost about $600,000 per year on average for the last 10 years. The county has presented on this issue and providing supporting documentation at county board meetings and also healthcare committee meetings. Back in 2018, a referendum was passed to fund the healthcare center's losses for 4 years, while the county reviewed possibility for the facility to operate in the black. The resulting plan was to ask taxpayers for more money to operate and build a new facility paid for by levying up to $4.5 million per year for 20 years. That second referendum passed, and at the exact time I was elected. We, or the county, hired an architect and a construction company to put together a plan for a new healthcare center. The plan called for a 32-bed skilled nursing facility with an 8-bed assisted living facility. When the building cost projections came in, what was originally estimated not to exceed $19.5 million came in at $23.5 million. And our operating deficits had dramatically increased due to reduced census and cost increases seen across all sectors of the economy. With the increased capital costs, and the county could no longer fulfill the obligations of that referendum. Of the 2 referendums you heard about, or always hear about, one was fulfilled, and the second proved to be insufficient. Then in August of 2024, the Healthcare Center Committee approved a resolution asking for a 3rd referendum for the county to further exceed the tax levy limits by $3.5 million per year for the years of 2025 to 2044. The The county board did not approve that resolution. The consensus was it was just getting too expensive for the county to be in the skilled nursing facility business. With that vote, the county was left with two options: to close the facility or to sell. The county chose to look at options for selling the healthcare center. We have listened to the citizens and heard their concerns, and we formed an ad hoc committee to potentially find an appropriate buyer for the healthcare center. That buyer had to meet 3 criteria. It must provide high-quality care, has been in the healthcare business for a long time, and has a great financial balance sheet, and also must offer the current employees a compensatory wage. Members of the ad hoc committee toured numbers of facilities, and Ensign was chosen to be the best fit for all the above criteria. Operating a standalone skilled nursing facility is very difficult to operate profitably, especially a government-operated one. Let me tell you why. The amount of licenses and permits that need to be attained and kept up to date is extensive. The extensive regulations that need to be adhered to and the documentation of care that needs to be recorded and filed, again, is extensive. The complicated billing and accounting to be done for financial accuracy is very challenging. There are very little economies of scale to aid profitability when you run a single-loan skilled nursing facility. You have no partners to share resources when adjustments have to be made in regards to staffing, supplies, specialized services to patients, such as respiratory care, dialysis, occupational therapy, and others. With the nature of the business, many decisions have to be made quickly and decisively to respond to changing conditions, such as adjusting Medicare and Medicaid payments, patient care, staffing needs, building upkeep, equipment maintenance, equipment calibration, and others. Because decision-making is tied to government processes and politics, in the county's experience, it does not react in a timely manner to be efficient and economically sustainable. We believe, based on our research, that Ensign brings to it with the ability to increase census along with more services by working in conjunction with the surrounding medical facilities it currently owns and the resources and expertise they have within their organization. There are also claims that Ensign will put up condominiums, high-rises, or apartment complexes on the property. Ensign operates over 300 healthcare facilities. They have been in the business since 2005. They have not divested of one. Regardless, the county has, as Attorney Kevin has stated, negotiated clauses in the purchase agreements giving the county the right of first offer if Ensign looks to sell the property. And it also has an option to buy the property should there ever be a change of use. With these provisions, the county has a continued voice in what happens with that property. Importantly for the city, the change to expand the footprint of the facility operating with a conditional use must bring that before you, a conditional use permit for your review and approval or denial, so you actually have a say in what happens to the property if things would change. Some people may say that we are rushing this decision. This decision has been going on for years. The county board has already chosen not to go to referendum for a third time almost 18 months ago, and has used that time to find a capable buyer. This is a county board decision to make. Please let the board make it, so we can keep this skilled nursing facility within the county. I bring all this background to hopefully clear up some of the misinformation that unfortunately is out there. From my experience of being county executive, we have a very caring, capable community. We are very generous, we are very industrious, and we truly are concerned about one another. Statistics show that about 70% of the population does not like change. There's an aspect of fear that sets in and poor decisions are made. Let's not make poor decisions because of fear. There are many people here today that can answer any of your questions or concerns that you have, so that you can make an appropriate and wise decision. Thank you for your time. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll move along with the speakers and keep you on hold, I suppose, if there are questions that come up. Carlene?
I'm Carlene Ferrante, 1324 Portage Street, and I thank the Stevens Point Plan Commission for allowing me to speak. I'm happy that I had an opportunity to listen to Mr. Pavelski. I was waiting to hear if he had any proof of the high quality of care that would be offered, and I didn't hear any proof. That will come up in a second. I do imagine that you have been lobbied to vote today to give the county officials what they want. This is the pressure cooker that Eric mentioned. I bet you have been reminded that you may not step on the big toes of Mr. Pavelski and Mr. Reeser. It is not the county's, it is the county's business whether they sell the health care center, not the city. Okay, they make that decision. You are not on the county board. And that's true. They're right, to a point. You will not be voting on selling the health care center. The county will be voting on that. However, whatever mindset or internal politics have led county officials to this place, you still have a job to do. You serve as a commissioner for the people of Stevens Point, and you must honor the Stevens Point Comprehensive Plan. You are not allowed to circle around the words and invent a meaning that is not there. You must take it at face value. And when you do that, you will have no choice but to vote to deny this request to amend the comprehensive plan. Okay, there are two distinct points in our comprehensive plan that make it impossible for you to grant these requests, at least at this time, maybe in the future. First, under special consideration for plan amendments, there are special considerations, just a few, near the end. Page 183 of the comprehensive plan, take a look. Item D, the amendment shall not create an adverse impact on public facilities and services. We're taking it at face value. It does not say public facilities and services owned and operated by the city. It says public facilities and services. You must take it at face value. You cannot assume that this was a mistake or that it means something different from what it says. There's a lot of research documenting the adverse effects that privatization has on publicly owned and operated nursing homes. The pattern is predictable. Staffing cuts, that's the first thing that happens, because that's where you have money that you can get for your profit. Staffing cuts lead to lower quality care, more ambulance runs, higher mortality. Privatizing leads to more falls, more bed sores, infections, and deaths. If you just Google the effects of privatization on the quality of nursing home care, you will find many, many, many studies that are out there and lots of data. And I could not find any that said that the quality of care will continue to stay high or improve under privatization in a for-profit. I did not find, maybe you could find one, but I did not. So take a look at the internet. The internet provides a treasure trove of information that has not been addressed by the county officials making this request. This is a big deal. Privatizing a nursing home when the only other nursing home we have is already privatized. That is a big deal for the residents of the city. This would be the end of access to top quality care in the city of Stevens Point. As you know, the Portage County Healthcare Center has earned well-earned a 5-star rating with the Medicare system, CMS. The other nursing home that has been privatized has a 1-star. And it doesn't happen overnight, but according to the documentation and the literature and the studies and the scientific research, it's a downward slide, and that is what will happen. That is what happens, okay? I'm not making this up. Which moves us to point 2 on page 181 of the comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan states, the applicant that proposes an amendment to the future land use map shall have the burden of proof to show that the proposed amendment is in the public interest. That's what I was waiting for in the speech right before mine. I have not heard any evidence, not only not proof, positive, I have not heard any evidence that this change to a privatized for-profit nursing home is going to be in the public interest. It is not going to be in the public interest. The applicant, Mr. Pavelski, has said nothing at all about the quality of care provided by the health care center and how it would change after the sale, other than to say that they were looking for a facility, an organization that would provide high quality of care. Well, I don't have all that, and you don't want to hear all that now, but this is not what the research would bear out also on their subsidiaries, okay? The applicant has simply said that the current use will not change. It will still be a nursing home. They make no argument to provide no proof that the proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan is in the public interest. If it is not in the public interest, you must vote no. Honorable Commissioners, you must work within the rules of the Stevens Point Comprehensive Plan. We know that granting the amendment to the comprehensive plan would allow this equity firm, actually their subsidiaries, I can't even remember the name of the two that are listed as the buyers, to operate a for-profit nursing home would in fact create a serious adverse impact on this important service to the public. And so you must reject this request, at least for now. Maybe they can come up with more evidence in the future, but there is no evidence at this point that this is in the public interest. And I thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Carlene. Anyone else? And I'll mention it again. I mean, we're still doing okay on time, but please try and keep comments germane to the issue and be respectful of everybody's time. That wasn't intended for you, Ray.
Sure sounds like it.
That was just a general comment.
My name is Raymond Cal. I'm a resident of Stevens Point. And it seems to me when we look at the comprehensive plan, that is a vital part of our democracy. When we look at what we do here locally, this is democracy at the very ground level. And one of the things I've been listening to as people come up here and talk is the fact that we've had a number of referendums on the Portage County healthcare home. Every one of those has passed with a strong majority of residents stating their support for the nursing home. You know, these are trying times for democracy for many of us as we look at things going on in our country. But here locally, I'd like to believe that our publicly elected officials are going to prioritize the voices of the people as they've expressed it consistently whenever it's been asked of them. And yes, our public officials talk about not wanting to put the vote to a referendum once again, because they know exactly what would happen if they did. The citizens of this community would express their opinions that they want the nursing home kept public. They want a 5-star nursing home in their community. Listening to the representatives and our public officials give their accolades to Ensign, I haven't heard a single one of them mention how many stars the Ensign nursing homes that are operated achieve. I suspect there's a reason for them to leave that absent from their comments. I doubt that we're going to have a 5-star nursing home very long if you allow this to take place. So again, I ask you to look at the comprehensive plan, what it calls for, to make changes to it, and support the will of the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Name and address, please.
I am Dr. Ray Reeser. I reside in New Hope Township, and I'm also the Portage County Board Chair.
Thank you.
I guess I would like to start with, I personally would not presume to tell the commission their work or their charge. Nor would I lecture your planning and zoning staff on their duties and responsibilities. You have really qualified people sitting at the table tonight. I also realize you are working within the constraints of rather outdated and arcane zoning laws. At times we are doing exactly the same thing at the county. You guys are updating your zoning, we're attempting to update our zoning. It's part of a natural process with zoning. Zoning isn't static, as most of you know. Again, I've mentioned this before, I've sat on the County Board of Adjustment, I've sat on the County Comprehensive Plan, I sit on my Town Comprehensive Plan Committee. Zoning is organic and zoning changes over time. What I would ask is that this commission consider the questions before it. You have three recommendations that the county brought forward with the assistance of your planning and zoning staff. Your planning and zoning staff have done their due diligence, they've done their finding of facts, they have ticked off how these meet all of the standards, and they have recommended that this commission approve those requests. With all due deference to the passionate testimony this evening, and I am not discounting it, but I do not believe that's the question that's on the table this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
Dave Laddick, 4517 Nicolay Avenue, Stevens Point. I'm also on the county board, and District 7 is within the city that I'm responsible for. And I'm also on the redevelopment authority for the city. So you have tonight to act on this 10-page document. That's what you're charged with. And I'll echo what our county board chair, Reeser, had said, is that you know, staff has approved this. They've worked very hard on it. They're very smart people. Our zoning is under review both at county and the city, and it's just a glitch, as far as I can tell, that just happened years ago. Nobody knows why it was, the underlining zoning was R2 instead of R4. Now we have the opportunity to correct it. So this is basically a request to comply with the city zoning code. The nursing home will continue to be operated in the same manner, but maybe have a different owner. We're voting on that tomorrow night as a county board. The building currently on the site is not changing. It will be in compliance with all standards, plus the existing land use is not changing. There'll be no adverse impact on public services or facilities, and will continue the same patient care. Same nursing staff, same CNAs. Nothing changes except the owner. The staff believes this change in zoning will be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan with the amendment here and the city's future use map. The change in zoning will not create adverse effect in adjacent compatible uses. Our county went through an extensive process with our ad hoc committee, including 2 citizen members, in vetting prospective buyers, and looked at who would be providing the best care. We ended up with Ensign. I did speak with a patient care advocate. Her name is Patty B. up at Lincoln County. Happened to find her through a family acquaintance. So I called her the other night. She stated that there has been improvement in the care at Pinecrest in Lincoln County. And with Ensign, and she was very pleased. She said she's very picky about patient care, and she actually put her cousin up there. She said she has not met any nurse or CNA that isn't pleased, and now very compassionate. The weekend staff was great. There's been great communications, very clean, and the rehab is outstanding. I want you to think about Edgewater Manor. We all know, we remember, some of the younger members might not on the board, but we had an opportunity to sell Edgewater Manor a while back. I think it was $1.2 million. But with public pushback, it was decided to keep it, where eventually the residents were relocated and the building was demolished and the lot is still empty. Think about that. Normally when you have a rezoning change, it brings out the neighbors in the neighborhood who are opposed, similar to Hoover and HH. You had a lot of neighbors, zoning rechange, so they're all here, all very upset. I don't see any neighbors here. I see the same people here that have been in the last meetings for the last 2 years. I don't see the neighbors. So I don't think the zoning change is unreasonable.
Dave, one second, please. Carlene, please afford all of the speakers the same opportunity and courtesy you had. Thank you. I apologize, Dave.
That's okay. So if the sale is approved by the county board tomorrow night, that property goes back on the tax roll and taxes will be paid. I heard testimony that it rests on public land and should be preserved, but just realize it's a building and not a park. And we are sectioning off some land to go with the Ruth Giffey Center. We're not selling the whole 16 acres because we need to keep some of that. So nursing homes are very complex in this day and age. Running is very different than it was in prior years. Regulations, coding, we need specialists. We don't really have that staff. So the, in Pinecrest, going back, which is Ensign right now, I talked to the director up there. He was with Lincoln County before, and he is the current administrator that kept him. His census of patients of care, high 60s, low 70s, he's got it up to over 90 right now. He is serving a greater portion of this population in Lincoln County and hired 30 additional people. So he had committed or stated that Ensign has made a lot of improvements, even this security with all their computer systems, ITs, they can be a lot more efficient. He did say the STAR system is less than a perfect system. It doesn't take too much to tank your rating. And but he said even with a 3 or 4 star, you can still get quality care. There's still a 5-star up there. I asked about the ambulance calls. He said there has been no increase in ambulance calls at their facility other than what's normal. If it's medically necessary, they'll call the ambulance. A lot of times he said it's the issue of the covering provider, where maybe the provider will say run an extra test on the patient or something like that. Sometimes they say, well, just call the ambulance and take them to the hospital. He did say too that with their their cluster method of operation, he feels a core value and some ownership there. So if they have specific needs, ideas, physical support, he goes to other facilities and they trade ideas and staff back and forth. Anyway, I want to conclude with saying the nursing home is here now. Will continue to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? We got just the one, right?
Yeah, just the one so far.
And Mary spoke already, right? Okay.
Yep.
Hello, Alex McCumber, 2633 Helen Street, Stevens Point. I guess, echoing some of the statements other people have made, it is the burden of proof upon the applicant to explain how this is in the public good. So far, I've heard that we've got a scolding from Chairman Razor. We've had a threat to just close the facility outright by Executive Pavelski, and Mr. Laddick has said that, according to their PR people, everything is groovy. I haven't heard anything yet that has indicated to me that this is in the public interest of the people of Stevens Point, and I would encourage you to really deeply consider that before making a decision tonight. As has also been said, a decision does not need to be made tonight. Please consider. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. Great. I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioners, any thoughts? I wasn't here for the early part of the meeting, so I didn't get to involved in the discussion. I did hear it all, of course, on the way.
Yeah, we do have a motion in a second.
We do have, yes, I saw that. We have a motion in a second. Let me start by first saying, Laura, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for stepping up to serve your community. Staff went through and vetted, and we chose you because of your experience. We think that you're going to be a good fit on the commission. I should also point out that Laura accepted the appointment prior to this item being coming up on the agenda. So I hope an apology isn't needed. But on behalf of the city, we thank you very much for stepping up and serving, because many times it's going to be a thankless job, and I know you're aware of that.
I'm aware.
A couple of things that have been talked about. First of all, staff vets each and every one of the requests that we get. If we, as a staff, feel that it does not meet one or more of the items that need to be considered, we'll get a negative recommendation, or we just won't submit it. We will tell the applicant that, yeah, it doesn't meet what we feel we need, or you didn't hit this threshold, so this committee would never see it. More often than not, though, we work with the applicant. We try and find a way where we can figure out how we can make this work with some concessions on their side, generally. The future land use changes. I've been doing this a long time, and some would argue too long. I hope not. But the plan is just that. It's a plan. It is not a Bible. It is not the Constitution. Well, no, arguably the Constitution's been changed too, hasn't it? But I asked the city clerk's office to go back the last couple of years and look to see how many changes, not of the comprehensive plan, but of specifically the future land use designations within that comprehensive plan, which is a subsection of that section. So just the future land use changes in the past several years were almost 10. I think there were 9, maybe 8. But in the past several years, that future land use map has been changed. I didn't even ask about how many times the comprehensive plan had been amended, to the point where when we talk about changes and amendments, state statute has listed this on the procedures to amend a comprehensive plan. The state statute defines it because they expect it to happen. Changes happen. And we talk about the referendums. Yes, I voted in both of those referendums in the affirmative, and I would continue to do so if it came up. But those referendums weren't about selling, they were about funding. Selling was not in either of those referendums. It was about selling. Arguably, the same thing is true for Business 51. It wasn't, should we keep it 4-lane or make it 3-lane? It was about a funding mechanism. And just to say that because those passed, the voters have spoken, we must end it. That's it. Well, people lose elections. Is that it? The voters have spoken. No. People will run again because circumstances change. And in this case, I don't know what would happen if this went to a public referendum, but that's not our job here either. We are a piece of this. Our request is to amend the future land use designation. Should we do it or not? And we have to use the evidence and the staff recommendation to make that determination. Heck, just a few months ago, there was a future land use designation for a publishing company or a printing company, and we didn't do it. It had been changed, it had been designated that for like 20 years, and we didn't do it. In this case, we have a staff recommendation. This is not about whether or not we should sell or should the county sell. This is a request just like any other, and as I mentioned at the last Plan Commission meeting, the county should receive no different treatment, better or worse, than any other applicant. The reason it's before you tonight is because the applicant requested it. We gave them the option. We could take it up in January. The applicant requested this special meeting. Since we had the opportunity to do it, we took it. So with that, are there any final comments from the commission? Otherwise, I'll have a vote. Commissioner Schuler, you look like you're going to speak.
Yeah, I have just a couple things to say. I wanted to comment a little bit about the comprehensive planning process and the relationship between future land use and zoning. It was mentioned, as is quoted by the statute, that you can't have a zoning ordinance unless it's based on a comprehensive plan and a future land use map, and said that it was the driver of the zoning. Well, I guess it's also a relationship, and part of the planning process is we're going to look at the existing land use we have, we're going to look at the existing zoning we have and make sure that they are what we need them to be. So, yes, you can have zoning based on having a comprehensive plan, but you also need to have the zoning in place and have a land use that accommodates the zoning. So it's not a determinative relationship where you come up with the land use and then you can zone it, but it's really a relationship of what's going on in the land, what needs to go on the land, and does your future land use accommodate what you think is a good use. So it's slightly more nuanced than perhaps was originally explained. In terms of the actual future land use that's there, I think we talked about this last time, where if you read that definition of that future land use category, it really doesn't apply to the non-municipal ownership. And based on that, we could have a circumstance where if we weren't to change the future land use and change the zoning, if it stayed the way it was, we have no idea what could happen in the future. The county could decide at some point they really can't do it anymore. And if we don't accommodate kind of a flexibility of ownership, and that's really what this is, if the county decided that if they just closed it, it could not be operated by anyone else. And I think if you look at continuity, sustainability, you would provide the land use and the zoning for this property that would allow this use to stay in place and viable for as long as possible. And I think it's really because of those things, based also on staff's clarification at the start of the meeting and Pete's clarification of his conversation. I think that really, if you boil right down to it, the things that we need to really address, everything in my mind points in favor of changing the land use. And so I support the motion, as I do support the two previously taken actions for the rezoning and the conditional use permit. And I guess, just as an aside, I haven't felt like I'm in a pressure cooker. I haven't felt that I needed to react to this. I think that the merits of the request, processed in the same time frame that we process any request that comes in, I think that we've dealt with the facts of it, and that there's a lot of emotions and possibilities of things that are definitely not wanting to happen that have colored the conversation. But at the end of the day, in order to provide the legal standing for this operation and this property, that it needs to go into the future completely unrestricted based on ownership, that this is really the decision that needs to be made, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner or Alderperson Kneebone?
Yeah, I don't think the use will stay the same. It won't. It may be a nursing home, but the level of care will have deteriorated considerably. I just was Googling Lincoln Center, or the Lincoln County, and within the first month, they got cited for withholding medication, and a patient went to the hospital as a result. Within a month of buying the property, they got a federal citation. I don't think the use is going to stay the same. I think it will be a huge adverse impact on the facility, on public services, public facilities and services. If indeed they're getting 200 and some ambulance calls for a 20-bed unit already, how many ambulance calls are they going to have at that place? I also think that the standard is not met regarding granting special privileges. I think this is a special privilege. I think Ensign should be here applying for this. I don't think the county should be doing this for Ensign. They're the buyer. They should write a contract saying contingent upon approval for all of this. And if it doesn't get approved, they can walk away. I think that we're doing this for the county, and I don't know that we would do it for someone else. I'm still a no. I think the impact on the community is going to be a disaster for care. Everything I've seen about this company, there's red flags all over the place. Put this off. Find a better buyer. Let the community decide. Wait till after April, till the county board elections. It doesn't have to be decided. It doesn't have to be approved. They can come. Ensign can come back and apply for this on their own. So I'm definitely a no, because I don't, and I know we have great staff, and I know they do their diligence, but I don't think these standards are met.
Thank you, Alderperson Kneebone. Commissioner Beacom.
I think it's clear the land use is staying the same. I don't think we're here to decide whether or not the level of care will be the same. That's determined in time, and there's just too much speculation. You know, I agree, privatization of medicine is probably not good, but the person bringing this forward is the county, the elected representatives and our county executives, and they've done the homework, and this is proper. We see this type of request all the time. I think it'd be wrong for council or for this body to look for loopholes and ways to change something when what's in front of us is the type of action we take all the time. Once you do that, that's a slippery slope. Once you start coloring outside the lines to get what you want, instead of relying on the process, that's a slippery slope.
Kind of like H.H. and Hoover.
Harry, please. Anything else, Commissioner?
Nope.
Any other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Arnson.
I have a question about procedures. What's the difference between a public hearing and public comment?
Public hearing is a legally required segment, which is required on some requests, mostly through community development. But public comment is open to any item. So we actually codified one of the first things we did when I became mayor, because previous people, committee chairs and mayors may have stifled public comment at some of the meetings, saying it wasn't relevant and we weren't going to take public comment. One of the first things we did when I became mayor is codify the public's right to speak on any actionable item from the council or any of its subcommittees, including this body. So the public hearing is a legal requirement. Public comment is, well, I guess that's the legal requirement now, but it's only a city legal requirement.
All right. That's
That
good to know. I didn't know that.
And I know there's a whole list of things that require a public comment or a public hearing. Again, most of them come through our community development department. They require, some things require a longer notice in a paper than others, but I'm sure Adam and the city clerk can give you all of the details that you ever wanted to know about those sorts of things offline.
It just, I've been to other meetings, county meetings and other meetings, that public comment is very limited, and, you know, we seem to keep it pretty open in this, and, I mean, for quite an extent.
We offer quite a bit of latitude, and with this item especially, quite a bit more latitude, because this is a passionate issue. People have things to say, and generally speaking, that's why we do it. We want to hear public comment. We want to hear what your thoughts are. Some are relevant, some are more passionate than relevant. But that's for the body to decide, and I've taken criticism for allowing too much latitude with public comment, especially on this item in one of the local publications, but I stand by it. Whether I agree with you or not is irrelevant. You have the right to say what you need to say, as long as you're respectful of everyone else in the room. And that's it, but that's pretty off topic.
All right. No, I'm good with that. I didn't know that there were rules to, that we got to do this.
Everybody's got a rule.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, government seems to make all sorts of rules, so they've been around a long time. Unless anybody has any other public comment, or comments rather, from the commission, I will ask for a roll call vote. If you are in favor of the motion, which is to adopt the land use, or amend the land use, future land use map for the comprehensive plan, you will vote yes. If you are opposed to amending that future land use map, you will vote no, and I will ask Adam to call the roll.
Weeza.
Aye.
Kneebone.
No.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Beacom.
Yes.
Rice.
Yes.
Schuler.
Yes.
And Stroik.
Yes.
By majority vote, that is adopted. That will be considered at the Common Council meeting, which is about 30 minutes away. Thank you all, commissioners, for coming in on a special night. I know how much special meetings can affect your personal lives, and I appreciate you doing that. And with that, our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 6:32.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.